Did you ever, Jaden, did you feel the pressures?
You know, yeah, I did. Once I went out into the world and I saw what people, you know, how people feel about my parents, you know, I didn't understand, you know, I'm still understanding more and more every day that
2010 to 2012, I had achieved everything that I had ever dreamed. I was beyond the wildest dreams. I had been blessed beyond anything I can imagine. But nobody in my family was.
How were you so able to create your own lane as opposed to just being the son of?
You know, that's something that I tried to do from the very beginning, and it's something that my parents were aware of, and they made us aware of it before, you know, we even found out from other people that there was this expectation on us. They said, hey, people out there in the outside world, they're gonna, you know, say this, and they're gonna say that, you know, you have to live up to our expectations of what we've done and what we've accomplished in our life, and you have to live with that. So we kind of knew that when we were young. And
for a long time, Will Smith was seen as one of Hollywood's safest bets. He built an image as the clean, reliable star who stayed out of real trouble. He even spoke openly about raising his kids differently, like he figured out a better system than everyone else. As Jaden Smith got older, that image started to feel less solid.
What is your worst nightmare?
My worst nightmare. I don't have nightmares.
I'd probably say his worst nightmare was
she was asking individually. Your worst nightmare and my worst nightmare. You don't get to tell people my worst nightmare.
Okay.
How could you know, Jaden?
This isn't about blaming Jaden. It's about how his life quietly exposed sides of Will that were never meant to be public.
All right, sit down. Stand up.
Okay, I'm really confused by the direction.
I'm the director. Do what I say.
Okay.
Wait, who did his wardrobe?
My pants used to be together.
This is important for Just.
I feel like this is more of a striped shirt thing.
Did somebody bring some clothes for Jaden?
For years, Will Smith had one of the cleanest reputations in the industry. Even people who didn't care for his movies still viewed him as someone who avoided controversy. That's why the lawsuit filed by Brian Scott Joseph landed harder than rumors usually do. It came with timelines, specific claims, and enough detail to make people pause. Brian Scott Joseph, a professional violinist and former America's Got Talent contestant, says he was hired to work with Will Smith on a tour project. At first, everything seemed normal, but Joseph says the tone slowly shifted. He claims Will Smith started using emotional language that felt too personal, crossing lines that made him uneasy. According to the lawsuit, Joseph felt pressure to stay close, stay quiet, and not question what was happening. He describes a setup where power and access blurred boundaries, and whether people believe the claims or not, the wording itself stands out. This wasn't framed as a simple misunderstanding. Joseph describes it as something that felt deliberate. Things escalated when he says that during the tour, while staying at a hotel, someone entered his room without permission. When he returned, he claims a handwritten note had been left behind. The note suggested someone would be coming back to spend time with him. Joseph says he didn't read it as friendly at all. He says it felt threatening, not because of the message alone, but because of the situation around it. According to the lawsuit, when he raised concerns, management brushed them off. Soon after, Joseph says he was fired and made to feel like he was the problem. Will's legal team denied all allegations, calling them false and irresponsible. On paper, it turned into one person's word against one of the most powerful names in entertainment, and that alone made the story impossible to ignore. Once the lawsuit went public, old voices started popping back up fast. People who had been talking for years suddenly felt heard again, and one of the loudest was Jaguar Wright. Her name started circulating all over again as clips and past statements resurfaced. Jaguar Wright had already made allegations about several industry figures, including Will Smith. She claimed his mentorship efforts sometimes crossed boundaries and raised concerns about emotional influence and control. She also spoke broadly about long-term emotional impact, mentioning family dynamics in a way that made people uncomfortable, though her claims were difficult to verify.
This is unlike him, right? So I open the door to Dwayne's dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having anal with Will. There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up, killing him. Murder, like murder. There was murder in there.
At first, many brushed her off, but once the lawsuit dropped, some viewers started connecting dots they had ignored before. Then brother Bilal, a longtime friend of Will, stepped forward with his own story. He claimed that years ago, he walked into a room and witnessed a situation involving Will that shocked him. He also alleged that a serious family conflict played a role in why he distanced himself from the household early on. After that, people began revisiting old interviews and public moments with fresh eyes.
Look and kiss my son. Jaden, come on.
Some clips show Will being openly affectionate with Jaden Smith, moments that were once seen as harmless and parental. Watching them again, some viewers now focus on body language, facial expressions, and reactions that feel tense or uncertain.
You ever jealous of the love Jada had for Tupac?
Oh.
I know
Oh my God, that dude. And that was in the early days.
That discomfort became harder for some people to ignore once attention shifted. It wasn't just one clip, it was several moments spread across different years and interviews, all resurfacing at once. Fans started asking whether those interactions were really about affection or about control over how the relationship was shown to the public. These moments mattered because they didn't happen privately. They played out in front of cameras with no real choice in how they were framed. Jaden didn't control the narrative, and once those images were out there, they followed him forever. Growing up without ownership over your own image can seriously blur your sense of boundaries. When discomfort gets laughed off or brushed aside, you learn fast that your feelings don't come first. Over time, that kind of experience can push someone to reclaim control however they can. By the time Jaden Smith reached his late teens, the public had already labeled him as different. His fashion, interviews, and music were all seen as confusing on purpose.
Didn't understand and just how deep-rooted they are in hip-hop as well.
Yeah,
you
my
know?
gosh, man.
I'm looking at this picture right here of Tupac on the shirt right there, and Tupac asked to marry my mom.
Yeah.
And she was like, we're Pac, like we're best friends.
Right.
Like,
The moment that really locked in that image came from how he spoke about his connection with Tyler, the Creator. Some people saw honesty, others felt uneasy, not because of who he liked, but because of how public and one-sided it felt. The conversation shifted from attraction to intent. That question hit a peak at Camp Flog Gnaw in 2018. Jaden was on stage in front of a massive crowd, energy high, when he grabbed the mic and publicly made his statement, a moment that instantly spread everywhere and changed how people talked about him. Jaden's public identity started to look less like self-discovery and more like self-defense. If he stayed unpredictable, no one could fully box him in, and that became his shield. That kind of strategy doesn't come from nowhere. To understand it, you have to go back to when his trust in his father started to crack. In 2013, Will Smith released After Earth. This wasn't just another role, it was Will's vision from top to bottom, framed as a passing of the torch. He openly talked about setting Jaden up for long-term success, calling it the perfect launch. But Jaden was only 14. That part often gets skipped, especially when the movie cost over $100 million and was pushed worldwide. The pressure wasn't just to act, it was to justify his father's belief in him on a massive stage.
I'm not going anywhere. The thing that people don't get is everything at his house is free. So I can get anything and everything that I want at his house. So I think I'm gonna be there for 20, 30 more years. But he says as soon as I have a movie that's bigger than one of his movies,
yeah, there ain't no reason to live at my house no more. But
That's a heavy load for a kid. When After Earth dropped, things went sideways fast. The movie wasn't just labeled bad, it was dragged as embarrassing. Jaden took the heat directly, becoming the main target. For someone raised being told he was special, that backlash hit hard. Not long after, Jaden Smith asked to be legally independent from his parents. He wanted emancipation. That wasn't a phase or a tantrum, it was a serious move. Later, Will admitted how deeply that moment hurt him. But the key detail is Jaden felt misled, exposed, and like his father's ambition mattered more than his protection. This is where the trust really cracked. Jaden stopped seeing his father as someone who could protect him, and acting stopped feeling like an opportunity and started feeling like a trap. So he backed off. He walked away from chasing traditional roles and built an identity that pushed against expectations. And that shift explains a lot of what came next. Meanwhile, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith doubled down on the parenting style they always defended. They believed strict rules were limiting and punishment caused harm. Conversation replaced structure, and their kids were given control over their own lives at a very young age. At first, that approach sounded progressive, but in real life, especially with fame and money removing normal consequences, that level of freedom can slide into something very different. Without everyday limits, boundaries start to disappear. Later on, Will admitted the approach didn't work the way he expected. He openly said the no punishment rule was a mistake. He realized too late that kids need boundaries, not because they're bad, but because they're still learning how the world works. Without limits, everything starts to feel optional, including responsibility. For Jaden Smith, that freedom came early and all at once. He wasn't just given choices, he was handed adult-level control without adult-level grounding. When things went wrong, there were no clear lines, just conversations, and talk can only go so far when a kid is overwhelmed. Jaden was pulled out of traditional school early. No classrooms, no tests, no daily peer groups. His learning became informal and mostly isolated. His parents believed school systems were too restrictive and harmful, and Jaden fully adopted that mindset. He started posting anti-school messages online, claiming schools were designed to control how kids think. He went as far as saying society would be smarter if everyone dropped out. Those posts didn't sound like quiet curiosity. They came from someone far removed from how most people actually live. The real issue wasn't questioning authority, it was isolation. School isn't just about lessons, it's about friction, disagreement, and learning how to function around people who don't think like you. Jaden missed much of that, and it showed. Without peers pushing back, his ideas rarely faced resistance. Instead of being challenged, they were often praised. Over time, that created confidence without grounding. He spoke with certainty, even when the ideas themselves didn't fully hold together. In public interviews, that disconnect became more obvious. Jaden Smith would talk about time, energy, and reality in ways that sounded deep on the surface, but didn't stand up to simple logic when examined closely. That lack of challenge followed him into adulthood. When someone grows up rarely hearing no, the first real pushback can feel personal. Public criticism then feels harsh instead of corrective. Fashion became another outlet for that tension, as Jaden leaned into skirts and gender-fluid looks as a way to control how he was seen. Almost instantly, it turned into headlines everywhere. Some people praised Jaden, others clowned him, and it became a full-on culture moment overnight. Later, Will Smith admitted that phase scared him as a parent. He said it was terrifying to watch, but he stayed hands-off anyway. The problem was, the world didn't care about philosophy or intentions, and Jaden Smith took the backlash alone. The same parents who protected him from rules didn't protect him from judgment. He was left facing millions of opinions without the emotional tools to process them. What looked like freedom from the outside often felt like abandonment on the inside. The pressure inside the Smith household didn't come from just one source. It came from old wounds that were never fully dealt with, and they sat under the surface for years. One of the biggest shadows over the family was Tupac Shakur. Jada Pinkett Smith has always been open about her deep bond with Tupac. It wasn't hidden or denied. It was something she carried openly, and that connection affected the family dynamic whether anyone admitted it or not. At one point, Will Smith openly said he felt jealous of Tupac. He admitted it caused insecurity and made him feel like he could never compete with that bond. That tension didn't stay between adults. It quietly seeped into the family atmosphere and added weight to everything else already going on. Kids pick up on tension even when nobody explains it to them. They feel what's off long before adults admit it. One moment that made a lot of people uneasy came when it became public that Willow Smith, while still very young, had written a letter to Tupac Shakur. She wrote that her mother was sad and needed him. The letter wasn't meant for the public, but once it surfaced, it raised serious questions about what kids were absorbing in that household. Willow's own experience with fame added another layer. She carried pressure most kids never face. At a very young age, she reached a breaking point, quit touring, and said she was done. By the time Jaden Smith reached his mid-20s, the confusion around him stopped feeling new and started feeling heavy. One of the clearest examples showed up during Paris Fashion Week. Jaden appeared in outfits impossible to ignore. In one look, his face was fully covered in paint. In others, his styling felt deliberately uncomfortable to look at. High fashion is used to strange visuals, so standing out there takes real effort, and Jaden clearly made that effort. But instead of praise, most reactions turned into mockery. People didn't ask about meaning. They compared him to Will Smith and questioned why he couldn't just be normal. That comparison never leaves him. Every move he makes gets measured against his father, and Jaden knows it. In a later interview, Jaden said something that caught people off guard. He said he hoped future psychologists would study him. He wanted them to look back and understand what was wrong with him. That line showed awareness. Jaden knows something feels off, and he knows the world sees him that way too. What really stood out was that Jaden didn't talk about healing or fixing anything. He talked about being analyzed later, like he already sees himself as a case study instead of a person. That says a lot about how he views his own life. When someone grows up constantly watched, judged, and discussed, it gets easy to stop feeling real. In that same interview, Jaden Smith admitted something else that explains a lot. He said people approach him just to talk about his father, not his music, not his ideas, not his work, just his dad. He said it makes it hard to feel like his own person, and that kind of isolation doesn't always look like loneliness from the outside. He's famous, he's wealthy, he's always around people, but real isolation is about not being known, not being seen for who you actually are. Jaden deals with that nonstop. Every time he tries to separate himself from Will Smith, the comparison pulls him right back in. If he dresses normal, people say he's wasting his privilege. If he dresses extreme, people say he's embarrassing his family. There's no safe lane. At some point, the looks stop feeling like rebellion and start feeling like armor. If people are going to laugh anyway, you might as well decide what they laugh at. That's what Jaden seems to be doing now. The choices Will Smith made as a parent are written all over his son's life. What was meant to create freedom ended up creating confusion. This isn't a story about rebellion or attention seeking. It's a story about consequences that took years to surface. Do you think Jaden failed, or was he given too much freedom too early? Did Will Smith guide his son, or did he lose control of the process? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video, subscribe for more, share it with others, and I'll see you in the next one.